Shut up!
And I decided to talk to you about board games. As I promised in the abstract, I will talk about history of board games and have a lot of pictures. This is the first slide. In here, in the background, you can see my board game collection. I made this picture yesterday, so this is pretty fresh.
Up to date. How many? Pretty fresh.
Over 60. But some of them are smaller games, other ones are bigger ones. So, first, what is a board game? Actually, if you look at the details, then if you're talking about a board game, then it's a game you play on the board. This is different from tabletop games that you play on a table. Usually, people don't make much distinction. For example, card games and dice games where you don't have a game board, those actually aren't board games.
Is chess
Chess is a board game. You have the chess table. But for example, normal playing cards, those actually aren't board games because they don't have a game playing board. Also, board games are like normal computer games. That's explained in that way that they have also expansions. For example, the Dominion, the game that Arnold likes, this has over 10 expansions. So first the author makes one game and then he sells expansions, like a lot of them. Some of the games don't have expansions, but some do. And this is just a picture to illustrate that dogs playing games.
That was yesterday at your place.
No, this was from the internet.
Fresh picture.
Very first picture. Now, okay, but how can I categorize all the games? There are a lot of different games. First and most simplest way to categorize them is by difficulty. There are simpler games and much difficult games. A common way to categorize them is the children's games. Those are, for example, the circus game that most of us know from our childhood. In this game, you don't have to do basically anything. You just roll the dice and you move along the numbers. You can't make any decisions because you must move exactly the numbers you got with the dice, and basically a luck game. On the other end of the spectrum, there are gamers games. Those are usually very complex. They have rules from 20 to 40 pages. They have a complex game board that has a lot of tokens on it. And if you haven't played much, then they will be really difficult for you. And in between those two categories, there are family games and adult games. This is basically, family games are games you can play with your children and you still enjoy, and adult games are a little bit more difficult games that children can play, but for gamers they are too simple.
Tell more about those adult games.
I thought about this, and those are not pornographic, they are just a little bit more complex.
But are there?
Yes, of course there are.
You mean the other kind? Yeah,
yes, the real adult games. Like.
I think there probably are games that are...
But not in your 60 pack.
No, I don't have games like that. I have like the real strategy cases.
By difficult, you mean how hard is it to win or how hard is it to play?
It's how hard is it to play.
Okay, because the first one isn't easy to win.
How hard?
About winning, winning is, for gamers games, usually you have to have some skill to win. For children's games, usually it's only about luck. There is no skill at all.
Yeah, but still difficult.
No, how difficult it can be. Of course, I understand that difficulty is relative, but you can't get much simpler than this. You just throw the dice and you move your one button, you don't have any more buttons.
If you don't have to roll it, you just place it.
But questions are good, I like questions, because then I will...
Then you will talk about this slide for the next 10 minutes.
Yes, this is okay, because usually
Last slide.
usually I speak too fast, so...
Where do you put chess?
Chess is I think it's adult game, because It's too difficult for just children like this.
But
know
it's
they
also a
play.
family game. When I was 6 years old, I played it with my father.
No, but this is too old game. It's like too boring.
Too old school.
Where would you put poker?
I don't remember.
It's not a board game.
It's the
card game.
The card game.
Well, it can be played on a board.
Yes, listen. First slide, come on.
Yeah. Okay. There are also other ways to categorize game. One of the popular ways is by gamer is Ameritrash and Eurogames. This is mostly about newer games, and this is categorized by the different characteristics of the games. Usually Ameritrash games, those are really highly themed. For example, there are like wizards or they are based on some specific books like Lovecraft books. Usually in Ameritrash games, they rely on luck, heavily on luck. For example, there are some fights in games, and then you throw some dice, and who throws better, he wins. But on the other hand, there are the Euro games or German games. Those games are more abstract. For example, this one is a picture from Agricola, and those red ones here are carrots, and this is grain. So there is in Ameritrash there are figures, but in Euro games there are small wooden tokens that represent stuff. They don't have to look like this.
So Ameritrash is like a trash.
Yes, exactly. especially based on the gamer's perspective, where you have to Ameritrash has much more luck than Euro games.
Are these categories called different in America, like Eurotrash and American?
When I googled it, I made then I didn't find much difference. And if you want to be polite, then you say American game and Euro game. But usually it was Ameritrash and Euro game, or Ameritrash and German style.
And usually they were invented by Europeans.
Probably, yes. No, but how to categorize game? The last slide about categorizing. Usually, if you take a game, you can't just give one label to it. Usually, there are a lot of categories, and this game belongs to many of them. For example, in the last slide, there was Agricola. This one, in there, you have to manage your farm and have to compete for some resources with other players. I would categorize this as a strategy game and an economy game, because you have to compete with other players and you have to build up your system to work well and grow a lot of grain and stuff like this. In here, I brought some example categories. I didn't bring all of them, because if I look at board game shops or stuff like that, then there are like 40 or more categories. And some of them are really, really small, like train games or something like that. I tried to give here some bigger categories. From those categories, I like the left side ones, but I mostly don't like the right side ones. I don't like the two-player games because I usually play with 4 players, and so I can't play them anyway, so I don't like them. I don't like the educational games. This is because usually they are memory games. They are like Estonian game and European games where you have to know some facts. And after 1 or 2 plays, you can't get anything out of them. So they are really, really boring. But I like economy and strategy and stuff like that, where you have to think.
What's deck building?
Deck building, this is for example like Dominion. Actually Dominion is a card game, it isn't a board game, but still. Deck building is a type of game where you have some hand of cards or something like that, and you have to get new elements into your hand. And then you play, circle your hand, play them out and stuff like that.
Like poker.
Not like poker. I don't want to talk about this. No, like Dominion.
Basically, you start with a really small deck, and by the end of the game, you have a really big or better deck.
You can choose what the cards to take to your hands, so your hand will be better than your neighbor's hand.
Another example is
Like poker.
Star Realms we have in the office.
Yes, Star Realms. I know there is one dice game that's deck building game. I want to play that. It's an interesting concept. And also there are co-op games where players play together against the table, or all players play together against one player. Like Saboteur, yes, this is a co-op game. Now, I wanted to talk about the history of games. Actually, it was really difficult to find out stuff about history, because games are like this, they rot out, so you can't have like 1,000-year-old games. But I found a few. The oldest game I found was Senate. This is from ancient Egypt. It's over 3,000 years old. This is a picture from Senate. Actually, its rules are lost because...
That's over 5,000 years old.
Yeah, yes, I meant 3,000 before Christ, so 5,000 years. But I think it was something like that, that in this game board there are 3 rows, and you have to get your buttons from one end to the other. And it was a 2-player game. All those old games in here, listed here, are usually 2-player games like Go and chess.
But there weren't playing so many people, so they
Yes.
could have four people.
Yeah,
playing.
this probably they didn't have. This is also true. I also wanted to point out that one of the oldest things people used to play were dice, and old times dice used to look like this. They are basically sticks that have 2 numbers, 1 or 2, in 2 different sides, and then you throw the sticks and look which is the upper side. This was before the normal 6-sided dice were developed. And it was probably, because those are probably some fancy dice, but usually they can just take a normal stick and put the marking on one end, and it will be much simpler. Now, let's go to the nearest century where we have some more information. This is 200 years ago. In that time period, printing was discovered or invented, and this made games really cheap. So even normal people could got them. And one of the earliest games was Snakes and Ladders. This is this one. This is basically the same circus game that we know. There are numbers. You just roll the dice and go up as many numbers as you got on the dice, and sometimes you go up and sometimes you go down based on the snakes and ladders that are on the board. And I like the circus game, nothing different, only the name. And also I wanted to mention just 2 games from 2 centuries ago. I haven't played them because they are too old, but I wanted to point something out. I don't know anyone who has them. Now let's go to the previous century. In that time, gaming really took on. First of the biggest game that anybody in here probably knows is Monopoly. This game was actually invented in year 1903, and its first name was the Landlord's Game. It was renamed to Monopoly 30 years later when some person tried to steal the patience from the original developer. And this is the original patient where the Landlord's Game. Actually, this Monopoly, it was based on some really deep theory about the monopolies, but nowadays nobody cares about that. It was meant as an educational game that shows that monopolies are really bad, and you shouldn't make them.
Nowadays there is also the anti-monopoly game.
Yes, this was this was developed in the 70s, and they had some issues with monopolies, and he didn't like the stuff in Monopoly, so he made an anti-monopoly. I haven't played anti-monopoly, I don't know the rules of this. And also I wanted to mention another game from the 60s, Acquire. This is also, I have played it once, one person in Estonia has it, never played it of course. And this is, I think, all a really interesting game. You have a game board and you must build hotels in there. And you can buy stock in your hotel or your neighbor's hotel and merge them at some points, and it's really interesting. Now, but this is all right, was all right prehistoric history. Now, but actually the gaming took on more in the 70s. First popular game genre was Boardgames. This came from First and Second World War because people like to play armies against each other. And in the 70s, they discovered miniatures. And so they discovered. Somebody started to make them. And then they started to sell them, and it became really popular. But it died out in the 80s, mostly because RPG games were also discovered. And this is Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons appeal to much more broader audience than just the war games fans, and so it became much bigger. And there was also a company behind that, Wizards of the Coast. It makes the Magic card games and prints Dungeons and Dragons books. They probably also promoted this. But in the 90s, board games went even more bigger. That's because of the internet. Because before the 90s, you only knew the board games your home has or your local shop has. You didn't know anything about the wider world. So in the beginning of the 90s, Americans discovered European games and Europeans discovered American games. In 1990s, discover, yes.
That is the proper.
In 1995, one of the first Euro games, Settlers of Catan, became really popular in the USA. This was the first major breakthrough for European games in America. You probably all played this. This is a really nice game. It's simpler rules and you can get it almost everywhere.
So is Risk the best example of war games?
Yes, this is a good example of war games because it's a really old game and everybody has heard of it.
You know?
I think it was made in the 50s or something like that. So after this, you have small features and you have to conquer the world or something like that. Also, I wanted to note out that in the year 2000, BoardGameGeek.com was opened. This is a website for board games.
Discovered.
Opened. Not discovered. Maybe invented, but not
The
discovered.
domain name was discovered.
I am also in there. If you play a little bit more, then if you want to get good game names, then you can get them from there. They have lists and stuff like that. Now, but what about games in Estonia? This I wrote from my childhood. I remember that we had circus in home. Also, we had around the world. I found a picture for this. This is much more advanced than circus because you have some decisions to make. When you roll the dice, you can choose which of your 4 die pawns to move, pieces to move. So,
What do you call that game?
ümber maailma.
Reis ümber maailma.
Reis ümber maailma.
I think now it's called Angry Birds.
I haven't played that version.
We have that one.
Also, I remember when I was small, I played card games with my father. This was mostly Bismarck or 1000 or Viis Lehte or 5 cards, I don't know what's in English. Potiknoi. And of course, chess and checkers. Chess and checkers are also board games, but I don't like them because mostly they are two-player games. And kabe ja male.
Mis see Bismarck is?
Bismarck. Bismarck, jah. Kaardimäng 3 mängida. Okay, but yes, I know that Oleg is a chess fan, but I would be scared to play with him because he's probably too good, so it would be boring.
But according to your classification, so chess should be Ameritrash because it has fancy figures, and Euro is like Euro.
Yes, this is logical, yeah. But the Ameritrash and the Euro games is mostly for newer games. They are probably too old to be categorized in this. Actually, there was a third category to the Ameritrash and the Euro game, but I didn't remember the name exactly.
Classic.
No, it was not classic. It was mass-produced or something. So really cheap games that are really pointless, but people pay money for. like European game and Estonian game where you just have some quizzes or something. Okay, but I wanted to talk about board games in Tartu. First, I know that 15 years ago there was a shop called Võlukamber in Tartu. It mostly sells magic cards, and I think Dungeons and Dragons stuff. I haven't been there, but I don't remember. They probably had some other board games also. In 2008, Ludo was opened. They renamed to Boardgames last year. And if you want to get board games in Estonia, then you probably will go to Ludo. They also have board game evenings. This was where I started my board game gaming. Also, if you want to buy games from internet, then Estonian page lauamängud.ee is a good page, a simple place to buy them. And if you want to get something from outside Estonia, then Lautapelit fees, they will deliver also to Estonia, which is okay. And if you aren't a gamer, then finding games from Zelda or Polo is also okay, because if you haven't played many of them, then they have a okay selection for a beginner.
Do you have a slide for Tallinn? Do you have a slide for Tallinn?
No, because I don't know anything about Tallinn.
In Tallinn there is Lorien, which is across the street from Hippodromi, which is pretty good.
This lauamängud.ee is basically their website.
Yeah.
Okay. They started it, then maybe they have opened it later. Yeah. They had also a shop, I think, a few months ago, a year ago, then they closed it at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Erki probably knows them because he needed us all the time with them. Maybe Arnan also. I wanted to also mention board games in Europe. I would say that Germany is the capital of European board games because Eurogame is also a German game. And they have a lot of game-related stuff, like in Essen they have a board game fair every year called Spiel. It's in September or October, something like that. And all the new games can come out at that time, at least for European market. I think there are probably smaller events, but this is one of the biggest ones. They also give out awards for best board games of the year, the Spiel des Jahres. I think nowadays they have 3 categories. But they have given it out for 30 years or something like that. Also in Europe, we have games, stuff like called designer games. This basically means that if a game comes out, then the author of the game is printed on the cover of the game. So you know who made this, and if this author makes a new game, then you know, oh, this guy made good game, so I will buy this game. Basically, in board game circles, game designers are really, really famous people, like authors, like Roma Robinson. And in the end, I wanted to give out a few links. First, a few weeks ago, I saw a quiz about board games in Õhtuleht. There was like 15 questions. It looked really funny. I answered, I think, 5 of them right. So I will share this link. And the last one is linked to my Board Game Geeks username, where I have all my games listed.
You should have bit.ly links to them.
I will give you the slides, so I don't want to make more links.
Have you thought out yourself also some board games?
No, I haven't.
Why?
Actually, if I was more, then me and my brother made a game, but I think it's already thrown away years ago.
But do you want us?
I think it would be interesting, but I have played a lot, so it's if I wanted to do something, I wanted to do something unique. And then
if you do it, then it is unique.
No, I mean something that you say and you don't say, aha, it's a copy of this one. Something that's non-copy. I think it would be interesting, but and challenging also. But I haven't taken the time yet.
So you haven't had ideas of any unique games?
Yes.
From the engineering point of view, the board game rules also need to be unit tested.
And usually
things don't.
A lot of board games have some random elements in it. And usually they are play tested. So you make a game, you give your friends to try out, and they ask for feedback. And then you balance stuff like that.
Okay.
Basically, because there are random elements, you can't be sure that if this is the best or worst solution.
Because usually every board game has some set of rules, like
Yes.
set of logical rules.
Yeah. Yeah,
that must match with each other.
Yes, of course, inside the game, all rules must match and you may not have inconsistencies.
But what games would you recommend to play?
For beginner?
Excluding
Yeah.
Okay.
Average player.
Average, okay. I think the best game would be the ones that sells. For example, Settlers of Catan. In there, everyone has villages and must make roads. It's really simple rules. Another one I would recommend is Carcassonne. There you must place. All players are building a map, and you must place your figures on the map to collect points. It has also really simple rules and easily learnable. But I don't like. Saboteur is also a great game. Okay. I wanted to send them out before, but I have a few games with me. Yes, full of bags. There is a mini game called Province I bought for €3 or something. Then there is Dixit probably. Somebody has seen this. This is a party game where you have to quest some cards.
Party game.
You brought it with us also.
You can read
I have 4 expansions of it.
Way down.
If somebody wants to take a look.
Are the expansions usually like useful, or are they just for making money?
Depends, as usual.
Yeah.
Usually they're very useful.
And here there is a guillotine where you have to kill heads of state for points. And this is Citadel, where everybody has to build their own city, and who first builds a bigger city, he wins. I mean.
And here is the bluff.
Okay. This is also if you want. Any more questions about board games or stuff?
So, what has been the longest board game you have played? Like, how long did it take?
I haven't played like 12 hours. I think 6 or 7. I haven't played longer.
That was the Game of Thrones game.
What is the? There are probably games that take 2 days.
Yes, there are. I think Dungeons and Dragons is one of them. And there are probably other stuff also. Oleg, last question.
Do you know any statistics about how many people die playing board games?
I haven't seen any statistics about this, but this would be probably interesting to see.
They do die, you know.
Woohoo! Maybe in China.